Hello, are you here to debate?
Hey, what's going on, Yoban? Yes, I am.
All right. What's your name, age, and pronouns?
Hmm. Name is Preston. I'm 27. He, him.
Okay. And what are you here to debate about?
Well, I'm here to debate the second point, minus to observe gender-affirming care. I've been listening to you for the past couple of debates, and I just wanted to figure something out. Are you in pursuit of winning the debate or in pursuit of the truth?
Well, I
no
would
judgment,
believe. Well, I would believe that the truth would win the debate. So.
Okay, I heard your point about earlier with that gentleman before I believe he was Italian or French man called him, talking about Trump, and Trump absolutely tried to push through a healthcare reform bill for Obamacare.
I wasn't talking about reform. I was talking about repealing and replacing, which is what he claimed he wanted to do.
Well, he did try to replace it with his own healthcare.
What was the bill that he tried to replace it with?
Well, the bill never got past committee because it was voted down by McCain in a split vote. And then people always speculate that the reason that McCain voted it down was for personal qualms.
What was the bill?
I'm just saying, it's a point of fact. It's a question of fact that just
what was the bill?
Give me a sec. I'll look up the healthcare bill. It was in 2017. American Health Care Act of 2017. It was closed to vote on May 4th, 2017. McCain was the final vote. He voted down. So. Anyways.
All this does, hold on. All this did was it amended specific parts of the Affordable Care Act. It didn't repeal or replace it.
It would have partially repealed it.
No, it says right here. The bill amends the patient protection under the Affordable Health Care Act.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it would have partially repealed parts of the ACA. Because
so he just wanted to get rid of it. So he just wanted to get rid of it without replacing it with something else.
I don't know about that. He wanted to partially repeal the ACA.
Yes, but this bill doesn't have any.
I'm impassioned. I'm just saying, like,
yes,
you
but
brought
hold
that
on.
up
If
that he didn't have one. I'm
hold
like,
on,
yeah, he did.
Hold on. Wait, no, he didn't. Because this bill doesn't provide any new anything. It's just repealing. Repeal. Where's the replace? So he just wanted to get rid of the ACA with nothing else so he didn't have a healthcare bill because there was nothing to replace this
okay, with. Yeah, I'll concede that. We're getting into a game of semantics. He wanted to replace Obamacare with a partial.
It's not semantics. Hold on. It's not semantics if my claim is he was going to repeal and replace. So when I say repeal and replace, I'm saying he was going to get rid of the Obamacare, the ACA, and replace it with his own healthcare position. This is what he said he would do day one. All he wanted to do was get rid of the ACA, and it sounds like McCain said this would be a bad idea to just get rid of the ACA because you're going to have millions of people uninsured all of a sudden with nothing else for them to have. And I would agree with that. It's a bad idea to just repeal this without replacing this.
The bill that he wanted to do, the AHCA, to partially repeal the ACA, was he still wanted to have health insurance that was available from the federal government so that anyone could get health insurance. But he wanted to replace parts of the ACA or remove parts of the ACA that it was a little bit more equitable, for employers in particular. Like, he wanted to make it so that employers were mandated if they had 50 employees to have to provide health care. He wanted to make it so that the individual employees could go to the federal government.
Okay, so just confirming, he has yet to, since he got into office in 2017, he has yet to provide his own health care bill. All he wanted to do was repeal portions of the ACA and not replace it with anything, just repeal, and that employers should not have to provide health care to their employees. Their employees should instead have to go to the federal government to get that health care.
Yeah, again, with the way that you're phrasing that makes it, and also you're forgetting the 50-person thing. That's another important aspect of it.
I think
Yeah.
all employers, whether they have 50 employees or one employee, should be mandated if their employees are full-time to provide healthcare to those employees.
And I hear you, and that's a point that is up for debate. There's trade-offs to doing that.
Such as what?
It's significantly more difficult to pass the threshold from a small business to a medium-sized business from 49 to 51 employees because you have a huge burden on your shoulders to do it. So it can de-incentivize business growth, and that leads to corporations being the only ones who are able to have monopolies on products. Let's start with that.
That has nothing to do with whether or not it would be difficult for them to provide healthcare.
No, it does, because they have to subsidize part of the healthcare provided to the employees.
Yeah, if you cannot afford to pay your employees benefits along with their pay, I don't believe your business is thriving enough that you can afford employees. You shouldn't hire employees if you can't afford this.
Well, there it is. There's the trade-off. You think that if you can't afford that, it's like, well, who can afford that and who can't afford that? A small business that's growing can't afford that. Walmart, they can afford that. There it is. You have a monopoly, and then it de-incentivizes competition.
No, you would still have competition. You just can't hire employees. You would have to do it yourself until you can afford it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Try and compete against Walmart with 49 employees. Best of luck.
Wait, do you think companies should be able to like not pay their employees like minimum wage, like small mom and pop businesses?
I have no idea what that has to do with the conversation.
It has everything to do with the conversation.
It has nothing to do with it. I'm talking about healthcare. You're talking about
quite literally everything to do with the conversation.
What does minimum wage have to do with providing healthcare to an employee?
Because my stance just now was that employers should be if you cannot afford to pay your employees benefits, you can't afford to have those employees. You're saying no, they should be able to. Hold on, I'm not done. I wasn't done.
People that are already rich.
I wasn't done. I wasn't done.
Okay.
So again, if you can't afford to pay your employees, why should you be allowed to have employees and exploit them? So I'm asking you a follow-up question.
Okay.
I'm asking you a follow-up question, which is, should you be able to hire an employee if you can't afford to pay them minimum wage? Should you also be able to exploit them in this way? Because you believe you should be able to exploit them in a benefits way. So I'm trying to find out where your logic goes to. It's still a part of the conversation. If you don't like your logic being tested, that's I don't know what to tell you.
It's not about whether or not one should, it's whether or not one can. And that's what I'm trying to say. A employer who is starting up a business can pay an employee a federal minimum wage. I think it's $7.85 or $7.25. I know it's state dependent too, right? But can they also afford to pay them out of their profits for subsidized healthcare? And the answer is no. Much of the time they cannot, because they don't have enough revenue coming in from a starting business.
Do you think businesses should be responsible for people's benefits, or that should all be from taxpayer dollars?
Do I think businesses should be responsible for their benefits? It's kind of a broad question.
No, it's not.
What benefits? Yeah, it is.
We're literally talking about healthcare.
Are we talking about retirements, pensions, healthcare?
We're literally talking about healthcare, are we not?
Well, I thought we were, but then you brought up minimum wage.
Would context clues not indicate that I'm speaking about healthcare when we're talking benefits?
It would if you didn't also bring in minimum wage.
Bringing in minimum wage was there to test. If you're going to be disingenuous, there's no point in the conversation. I already explained why I brought up the minimum wage, and I already linked it back to the conversation at hand. So if you want to go back to that, we can. But I've already.
I'm sincere.
If you're not trying to be, you just are being, right? That just means it's your natural state, which is kind of weird. But again, my question still remains: do you believe that health insurance? I'll be more specific because you couldn't pick up on the context clues. Do you believe health insurance should be paid for by the employer, or should it all be paid for through tax dollars?
I don't think that it should be either necessarily. I think there should be if an employer can afford it, they can offer group health insurance to their employees. I think that the federal government should have an option for healthcare so that anyone can be covered. And I think that people should have the opportunity to choose private health insurance. But under the current situation, a employer is required to provide healthcare insurance, and that can disincentivize competition because it eats up a lot of profit that small businesses may not have.
So, a few things on this. One, when it comes to health insurance, until we have a fully funded public option, employers have to be responsible for health insurance. They just have to be. And if you cannot afford health insurance for all of your employees, then you cannot afford to have 50 employees. I don't even think you can afford to have 49 employees if you're not paying them insurance, right? Because what you're doing, what you're doing is you're exploiting these employees, especially if they make enough under you that they don't qualify for government-funded health insurance, which if they're full-time employees working minimum wage, I'd assume they do not make enough for government-funded health care. So these people should just have to now pay out of pocket however much their premiums are going to be, typically $200 to $300 for single payer healthcare, and that's not counting if you have a family. That's counting for an individual plan. So now these people have to pay out of pocket because they're being exploited by not only the government for not offering them full-time benefit or offering them a comprehensive health insurance plan, but their employers for not offering them a comprehensive health insurance plan.
Okay, that is a point. I hear your point. You can hold that stance. But has to be an acknowledgement that there's a trade-off to that, which is then the people that start businesses are going to be much smaller in their ability to do so on the basis that they can initially afford to provide health insurance.
I'm fine with their businesses being smaller.
Okay, it's not about their businesses being smaller. It's about who can afford the business.
Then why did you mention it being smaller?
Because businesses that are larger generally have more resources and can quash competition that is not as large as it.
Squashing competition typically doesn't have anything to do with being able to afford healthcare. It's more just going to be that these bigger businesses such as Walmart, these big box stores, can provide more product on the cheap. And Walmart doesn't even offer their employees comprehensive benefit packages. This is why Walmart is the biggest employer of employees that have Medicaid, that have state-funded healthcare like Obamacare and the ACA, SNAP benefits, welfare benefits. Walmart doesn't even pay their employees comprehensive benefits.
But once again, you just said you just gave me a nice little lashing that I wasn't picking up on your context clues to talk about healthcare insurance when you said benefits, and now you're expanding it. That we're no longer just talking about healthcare insurance, right?
No, the reason I expanded it was to show
Walmart offers health insurance full-time and part-time to employees.
Walmart does not offer comprehensive insurance to its employees, hence why it employs its employees are some of the largest recipients of government-sponsored healthcare in the country.
Okay, really quick. Walmart has an option for its employees, part-time and full-time. They work 30 hours a week. They have a health insurance plan for them that they can opt into.
How many times do I have to repeat myself?
What? Did I mess up?
Walmart employs the largest percentage of employees who also have to rely on government benefits such as state-funded health care because they do not receive comprehensive benefits enough from Walmart.
Okay, what I'm saying is Walmart still by law is required to provide them health insurance that they have to subsidize through group health insurance. I'm saying that is a burden that's put on Walmart, right? Walmart can afford that burden. Now, maybe the employee can't afford even the subsidized coverage Walmart provides, so they have to go with state-provided Medicaid or federally provided Medicaid. But if you compare someone who could compete with Walmart, the competition who's 51 employees, they might not even be able to give them that option. Walmart probably didn't give them that option when they had 51 employees. And now they're a giant conglomerate. And so it's just a trade-off is all I'm saying. It's factual.
So my question is again, where should these people get their insurance from? Do you believe that we should move to a government-funded system where they get their insurance from tax dollars as opposed to from their employers?
I do not believe that. I think
where
that
should they
the
get their
option
insurance
provided in the
from?
question is too narrow.
So where should they get their insurance from?
I think they should have options.
Such as?
I've stated them already. There should be a federal option available. There should be private options available. And if the employer can or wishes to provide group coverage, that can be done too. I think that's a pretty decent system. It's pretty comprehensive. It's pretty free market in so many ways, but it also invites the government to provide some protection. Doesn't that not seem like a pretty good middle ground?
So I'm just going to confirm here. You believe that there should be a federal option that we all pay into, but only some people are able to utilize.
By pay into, do you mean just through taxes?
Well, that's the only way we would pay into a federal system, yes.
No, I don't know. I think you could probably have it where the federal system, it's whoever pays into it can be provided the health care. I think you could probably find a way to mitigate the fact that the impoverished would be only ones that may be using the federal healthcare system by providing them the doctors that are requisite to what is afforded. You could have government doctors. That's a thing. That's already a thing. You know?
So you believe that if you are poor, I don't think
you have to have everyone pay into it.
Just confirming, you believe that if you are poor, only those who are poor should pay into this federal system, meaning that there's going to be
No, I didn't say that. Never said that.
You just said it would be the people utilizing the system that pay into it.
Yeah, I said that. I said that would likely be the poor.
So why would wealthy people pay into this system if they can afford really good private insurance? So maybe they would,
maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they pay into it because it's the cheapest option available.
Why
and they just have an indifference towards health insurance.
Why would they want the cheapest option when that cheapest option is also going to give them the cheapest doctors, so they're going to receive a lower quality of care?
Well, see, that's just it. And I overheard you. I listened to the previous conversation you had with that guy. Some people really don't want health insurance. I know that's hard for you to believe, but it's expensive.
Why is health insurance expensive?
Let me put the shoe on the other foot. When you just said who, do you think that there is no one in America that, if given the option, would opt out of the cost of health insurance?
Why is health insurance expensive?
So you do.
Why is health insurance? Because what you're doing is you're making claims while ignoring the material reality of the claims that like the material conditions of the reason of the claims.
Because there's a lot of reasons why health insurance is expensive. Health insurance is expensive because there's not competition in certain areas. Why does an appendectomy cost $20,000 when other countries can do it for free? Health insurance is expensive because of the insane amount of regulations put in the medical field. Health insurance is expensive because there's an oligarchy of medical companies, because it's hard to have competition.
Because they're subsidized by the government. Which regulations make healthcare expensive? Which ones specifically?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head which ones.
Okay, so then I'm just going to assume regulation doesn't make healthcare expensive.
Do you think regulations don't make healthcare expensive?
No.
Okay.
If it did, I'd assume you'd be able to tell me which specific regulations make it more expensive.
No, once again, that spoke to my first question, which is, I think you're more about winning the argument than the truth.
No, I think you are unable to. No, I think you are unable to substantiate your position, but want me to just take your position at face value. Substantiate it. I'm not just going to take it at face value. If you're claiming that there are regulations, and that by imposing these specific regulations, it causes health insurance to cost more, I'd want to know what those specific regulations are.
Okay, well, I can see the point. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I'm here to talk to you about the second point, which is minors deserve gender-affirming care. I wanted to get into it with you, with why you hold that position, and what's your take on minors getting double mastectomies, getting put on chemicals that help them transition at a young age.
Yeah, so when it comes to gender affirming healthcare, I believe that gender affirming healthcare should line up with the Tanner stages that you are in. So that would mean Tanner stage 2, you can begin pubertal suppressants. Between Tanner stages 3 and 4, you can begin HRT. And then I believe that you can have things like top surgery probably around 15, 16, and then bottom surgery around like 18, 19. I think these are fine guidelines that we currently exist under, because gender affirming care not only helps when it comes to suicidality, but it also helps with comorbidities such as depression, anxiety, things like that.
Yeah, well, okay, so that sounds like a reasonable approach, but I think what's happening in reality, like what you said, it sounds reasonable, but in reality, that's not quite how the medical field is handling the situation. Um, the medical field is allowing for youth to have these transitionary surgeries at the stages not associated with the Tanner stages.
Do you have evidence on this?
Oh yeah, oh my God.
Okay, can I see it?
Kaiser Permanente is under huge litigation right now. Chloe Brockman v. Kaiser, from their lawsuit. Are you not following this?
I would need you to explain the case.
So Chloe Brockman was a young girl and went to go get counseling because she was having suicidal ideations, or so the counselor alleged. I don't think Chloe ever said she was, but Chloe went to go get counseling, and she was struggling with her identity. And after struggling with her identity, the counselor recommended that she go be put on treatments for gender-affirming care. I think she was 13 when this was being done.
So then she would line up with the Tanner stages. You said she didn't line up with the Tanner stages.
Well, the gender-affirming care that was provided was a request for a double mastectomy, be put on off-label puberty blockers.
Puberty blockers puberty blockers at 13 would align with the Tanner stages. So would hormone injections align with the Tanner stages?
It's off-label. It's off-label.
I don't care that it's off-label. That doesn't mean anything to me.
It's important. It's important because off-label puberty blockers aren't put through the FDA.
I don't care.
It's experimental. You don't care that we provide drugs?
No, because the FDA has already approved pubertal suppressants when it comes to precocious puberty, and they do the exact same thing when it comes to precocious puberty and gender affirming care. So just because they haven't been approved for gender affirming care, they've been approved to block puberty. So like, I don't necessarily care because they're doing exactly the thing that the FDA approved them for. Like Lupron Depot PED, for example, has been approved by the FDA for precocious puberty. So when you're using it for gender affirming care, you're using it for the exact same reason.
Yeah, but it's still off-label, so it's an unapproved reason.
So many things are.
It's like using Benadryl to go to sleep. It's not a good idea.
We use so many things off-label that doesn't show the harm. Just because it's off-label doesn't show the harm. You have to show the harm.
It's not in civil court. You just have to show more likely than not.
Sure, but the case isn't about her using them off-label. The case is about not being informed of a psychiatric treatment option, and not being informed of the risk that them claiming that her suicide risk was high. The claim is not talking about the off-labelness of the drugs, right? So I don't know what that has to do with anything.
The complaint that was put forth by Chloe mentions the off-label puberty blockers for good cause. They had a purpose for leaving that into the general statements of fact.
She claimed that the defendants did not inform her and her parents of the option of psychiatric treatment or of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health standards of care. So it's that the doctors didn't follow the W path. So your issue is with a medical group not following the typical standards that need to be followed. I'd have an issue with this too if they didn't follow the W path. But this isn't showing why gender affirming care, such as puberty blockers, HRT, mastectomies are bad. It's just showing that someone didn't receive the appropriate care from this specific medical institution, which I would agree with. If they did not follow the W path standard, I'd have an issue with this.
No, it speaks to a bigger issue, which is that a way that you can get out of the loophole of the Tanner stages is by making a claim
She
that
got it
the
in the
client
Tanner
will commit
stages.
suicide.
She got it in the
That
Tanner
that
stages. Tanner stage 2
the
happens
double
between
mastectomy.
when
She got the double
did she
mastectomy.
receive the double mastectomy? When did she receive this?
I believe it was at 14. Let me verify that. At 15, she underwent a double mastectomy.
So the age that I said is okay for a double mastectomy, between 15 and 16.
You said 16 and 17.
No, I said 17. No, I said 15 and 16 for a double mastectomy. Just like I don't really care if like a 15-year-old wants a breast reduction because her breasts are too big, right? I don't really care about like that. It's a non-issue for me.
Okay, there's an issue. The issue is that she's being provided the logic behind why she should get a double mastectomy and be put on these puberty blockers is because a counselor of hers said that if she wasn't doing that there is a potential that she'll kill herself.
Because they didn't follow the WPATH standard. Yep, the WPATH standard is the standard I operate under.
The WPATH standard, is this something that's universally accepted in the medical field?
Yes, and it's what she alleges it's what they allege in the lawsuit, is that they said that their doctor did not follow the standard of care from the World Professional Association of Transgender Health. It's what she alleges, that they didn't follow the WPATH. Yes, the WPATH is standard is like across the board in the US. So yeah, I would agree. If they didn't follow that standard, I would have an issue.
Okay.
But this does not.
It says it in the complaint that they didn't follow the WPATH?
Quite, yes. Cole has said that her doctor did not follow the standards of care from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health.
Okay, that's not okay. I can understand where you're coming from with that. That's not Chloe Cole saying that it's the WPATH. It's saying that she didn't follow something that this World Professional Association put forward.
Yes, they didn't follow the WPATH standard. What is so confusing about this?
So if you have a problem with this breach of duty done by the counselor against the transitioner, right? Don't you see how saying something like minors deserve gender-affirming care opens up a suite of civil wrongdoings to detransitioners in particular?
If I have a doctor, if I have a patient who has chemo and the doctor doesn't follow standards of care, or a patient who has cancer and the doctor doesn't follow standards of care and gives them incorrect care, is this also me saying that like cancer patients should not receive chemotherapy because like some doctors might not provide the correct level or standards of care? No, a doctor not providing the standard of care does not show why this thing is harmful. You need to show the material harm of someone receiving pubertal suppressants during Tanner stage 2, someone getting hormone and HRT during Tanner stages 3 and 4, of someone getting a double mastectomy when they're 15, 16. You need to show the harm here, especially when we have the evidence of specifically minors who receive these things, and we have their regret rates, which are below 1% typically. So no, I'm not going to say, even if you want to take the conservative route, it would be at maximum 3%. So no, I'm not going to say that because 3% of people might regret a procedure, 97% should suffer. That's just ridiculous.
The regret rate. Let's get into this.
Sure.
The regret rate. What study are you citing, or what are you citing that talks about that regret rate?
Multiple. I'll pull them all up.
Okay.
So we have specifically re-identification with birth registered sex in a Western Australian pediatric gender clinic cohort. That was a study that analyzed 552 youth gender clinic referrals over a period of 6 years. They found that only 1% of youth who were prescribed puberty blockers and or hormones desisted. That was 2 people. Other than that, 93.1% of the desisting cases, which was 27 people, occurred before any drugs were prescribed, and the overwhelming number of people, which would be around 500 and 517, 512, I think 512, did not desist at all during the 6-year period. We also have ones that
that doesn't correlate with. Go ahead.
How does that not correlate?
No. Please go ahead. What's the next one?
Well, wait. If you're going to say that doesn't correlate, I want to know how it would not correlate.
I cut myself up. I take it back. What's the next study?
Okay. We have a 50-year longitudinal study. The 50-year longitudinal study. This one is an analysis of all applications for sex reassignment surgery in Sweden, 1960 to 2010, prevalence, incidence, and regrets, and found that only 2.2% regretted any sort of bottom surgery. So only 2.2% of people regretted any sort of bottom surgery. So that would be low on the regret rate as well. We also have regret after gender affirmation surgery, a systematic review and meta-analysis of prevalence. This one analyzed 27 peer-reviewed studies that covered about 8,000 total trans individuals and found a regret rate of gender-affirming surgeries at about 1%. We also have, which one is this one? No, those are fine. Those ones all affirm what I'm saying is that the regret rate is low after gender affirming care. And then the first one points to the youth rate also being in line with the adult rate.
Who are they asking? Okay, there seems to be an inflation between people that desist and people that regret. And I would argue that the validity of these studies is questionable on the basis that I don't even know if it's, look at the group that they're asking who's regretting. Are they people that have transitioned? Yeah. Like, I don't understand how that provides us any new information.
What are you talking about?
Because if they regretted it, then they would desist, right?
What desisting and regretting are two different things.
Okay, well, you could come to an inference that the reason people desist is because they regret the surgery, right?
No, desisting means that your gender dysphoria fades before you even have transitioning. So it means you were a little dysphoric, but you weren't classified as having gender dysphoria. Detransition means that you reversed any gender transition that you went through. So when we're looking at desisting, we're going to look at the amount of people that no longer had gender dysphoria. And typically, when it comes to minors, they're going to desist well before any gender-affirming care happens. That's why the regret rate is so low, because the ones going through the processes aren't desisting. They had gender dysphoria, so they don't regret going through the gender-affirming care. Because the ones that did, the ones that weren't trans, desisted well before any care was given to them, any medical care was given to them.
Okay, but you do not see the problem with this idea between desisting and detransitioning about regret?
What would be the problem here?
Who are they asking? Who are they asking for the regret study? The threshold. It's like, who are you asking who regrets what?
Well, in the largest one, it was a longitudinal study. So they from 1960 to 2010, they looked at 767 people who applied for legal and surgical sex reassignment.
Mm-hmm. But they're still developing as a child when they're asking them that.
That's why we would look at the
and they're being
affirmed,
rate. And they're being affirmed by, I presume, either a counselor, a psychiatrist, probably at a clinic, that they should have gender affirming care.
No, they're going to be referred to somebody who goes through the W path that wants to look at them having 6 months of persistent, insistent, and consistent gender nonconformity or gender dysphoria. If you have someone that doesn't do this,
if you keep doing that,
no.
Okay, go ahead.
If you have somebody that doesn't do this, you're going to have issues like with the case you brought up earlier, where they did not provide the W path standard of care.
Okay, but if you have someone that has consistent gender dysphoria, and then you say, okay, the way that we can, make this better is by you going through the initial stages of what you call the W path. to transition.
The W path is not a
And
standard
they're
for
being
transition. This is where I don't think you know what I don't think you've done enough research here. The W path standard is a standard that we can use to diagnose someone as gender dysphoric. Like you wouldn't even be classified as gender dysphoric until you go through this. Also, W Jones, right? Thank you, Jones. So I don't know what you're talking about, right? The W path isn't saying this is how you have to go through getting your transition, your medical care. It's saying this is how we're going to diagnose gender dysphoria.
Okay, but okay. The W path thing, honestly, I don't find the relevance in it. I don't understand
Because
why it's
the
relevant to the
person
conversation
you
at hand
brought
here. When I
up,
was saying W path, I
because
know
the
I did. I was bringing it up because I was saying that there's some standard of care that the counselor is using, right, to see that there are conditions in somebody who has gender dysphoria that is consistent. And you said two others, right? That it's something that's a
consistent,
frequency in
persistent,
their
and
life and that's not going
insistent.
away.
Consistent,
What?
persistent, and insistence. So they
Okay.
consistently identify it that way. They're insistent about their identity, and that identity persists throughout 6 or more months.
Okay. The issue at hand then would be when we say minors deserve gender-affirming care. All right. It's not whether or not a minor deserves gender-affirming care.
Thank you, Boo.
It's what gender-affirming care is then composed of. Why does gender-affirming care have to be a double mastectomy or being
It
put on
doesn't have to be
off-label
gender
puberty
affirming.
blockers?
So first of all, you keep saying off-label like it's it makes it bad. Like that would just again be you're just coding the language, which is just, in my view, disingenuous, right? We've already gone through the off-label thing, why it actually doesn't matter, and it's actually just a nonsense thing. When it comes to medical affirming care, whether that be top surgery, whether that be HRT, whether that be pubertal suppressants, it is an individualized treatment method, and it depends on the individual. I'm not going to make total claims for everybody about how their health insurance should be given to them. Because how their healthcare should be given to them. Because healthcare is an individualized process. So some people may need a top surgery before they're 16. They just might need it, right? And we shouldn't bar them from receiving it when we have no evidence of it being harmful, especially when someone needs that care. There are plenty of people, like you've brought up Chloe Brockman, right? There are plenty of people, or Chloe Cole, whatever she goes by now. There are plenty of people who have had top surgery that have not regretted this decision, right? For every one person you bring me up that detransitioned, I can bring you up 5 that didn't detransition. So it's just,
yeah, well, it's a new thing in society.
It's
a very new concept. Oh yeah.
What?
It's a very new concept at rates unforeseen hitherto in society. It's the highest it's ever been in history.
Yeah, because we accept it more. Do I have to
Yeah,
pull out the
well,
left-handed chart? Like when something becomes more people came out as gay when we started accepting gay people, right? Like when something is
but we look at things in nature and we look at rates of homosexuality when we look at it in other species, and then we correlate it accordingly, and we see that we have a significant, and then we can do it with other countries too, modern countries, and we can see that having something like 1 in 4 of Gen Z adults identifying as LGBTQ is pretty unheard of.
First of all, I don't care what we see prevalent in nature, right? Humans are going to be much more social creatures, and we have a much more highly developed brain than most animals. So I don't really care like what the prevalence is of animals like being gay, right? That means nothing in the conversation, right? And the reason why we're going to see a much more people identifying as LGBTQ is because people's like just by evolution of people are much more comfortable with that. If you go back to ancient Greece, you're probably going to see a higher prevalence of people that were queer in some way, shape, or form than when you look at like Puritan America, right? Like this doesn't mean anything. This is a nonsense talking point that is just trying to point to some baloney social contagion talk that it just doesn't hold weight in any like significant way when we're looking at the research of this, right? You can't point out any relevant harm or any, I won't even say relevant, any statistical harm that's being done by allowing minors to receive gender affirming care, right? You can't point out the significant harm here. Where is it? Where is the, I'd assume if the harm was so bad, we would have study after study of this harm, but it doesn't exist.
Okay. Well, how long do you think it takes to review trends and to look at data of modern and no precedented surgeries and care provided to people? You think it's just overnight?
We have 50 plus years of data. 50 is plenty.
50 plus years of data. You think it was going on
yes.
since the 70s that people were getting double vasectomies
yes,
between the ages of 13 and 17?
Wait,
at the rates.
Jesus Christ. So again, what do you think we're going to see? Do you think in like 20 years we're going to see this massive trend of trans kids like all of a sudden being like, we messed up?
Yeah, I think the litigation is going to get really, really insane.
I disagree. And the only thing you have to go on is speculation. You're speculating that this will happen.
There's been a couple of detransitioners that have been going
and there have been way more non-detransitioners. There have been way more that haven't detransitioned. The detransitioners
are a good metric. Just say that there's more people that haven't done something.
Wait, if we're talking about whether they regret something, yes, it is the metric, right? If we're going to talk about whether or not we're going to see this massive regret rate amongst transitioners, we're going to see this big litigation, yes. Whether or not they detransition is going to be a giant metric in this.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a litany of litigation. I think this Chloe Cole situation is just the tip of the iceberg.
Except Chloe Cole is not alleging that gender affirming care was harmful. They're alleging that they didn't receive the standard of care that they should have received. And that if they had received that standard of care, then their doctor wouldn't have put them through the path of transitioning. Yeah,
that's not really. Had a doctor known that she was going to regret having her boobs cut off and being put on
had the doctor followed the proper procedures of diagnosing gender dysphoria, she wouldn't have been diagnosed with it. You don't know what I don't think you know what you're talking about, and it's crazy.
I know what I'm talking about here.
You don't.
I'm in my element with this level of negligence put forward by the psychiatrist. I know that they have a duty to try and notify anyone that's transitioning of all the options available. All right. And
which would be a part of the W path standard, which they did not follow. You don't know what you're talking about because you keep bringing up stuff that wouldn't have happened had she gone through with the proper standard of care.
Except, see, the crux of the issue here is whether or not someone can claim that they're going to kill themselves. And if you can provide them relief from that statement by deviating from the set standard. Yeah, that's what's at stake here. If someone says, I know that I have a WPATH standard, but I might kill myself if I don't get this double mastectomy now, or I don't go put on these pills, or I don't get something that affirms my gender, then is that considered a breach of duty if they don't do anything? You tell me. What do you think?
No.
So what if they kill themselves? Don't you understand that that's opening the door for negligence?
No, it's not.
Yeah, yes, no, it is.
If I'm a doctor, if I'm a doctor, wait, answer me this question. If I'm a doctor and I have somebody come in that says, hey, if you don't cut my arm off, I'm going to kill myself. Does that mean I have to cut their arm off right there? And would it be neglect if I don't? No, it wouldn't. You're making up stuff. You're making up what we would consider medical neglect. Medical neglect is not you disregard all standards of care because somebody is suicidal. That's not what medical neglect is, and you know that's not what medical neglect is.
You actually might. I'm not kidding, because that could be considered notice.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. And to claim that you would is it's telling me that you don't understand the medical system.
It all
You're
depends.
No, it doesn't. What you would be charged, you might be charged neglect if you don't put them through to the appropriate mental health channels, but you're not going to be charged neglect because you didn't cut their arm off. What?
Yeah, well, no, it's not. I'm not so stupid. You talk to me like I'm an idiot. And
then don't act like an idiot.
It's fucking degrading.
Then don't act like an idiot,
Look,
and I won't talk to you like you're an idiot. It's real simple.
I'm not saying that if you come in and scream at a doctor, if you don't cut my arm off, they're going to be sued for negligence. I'm saying that if you extrapolate the principle, it's like, yeah, you could hold a doctor for negligence if they see a condition that's happening in front of them and they don't do something about it. They can be held for negligence when they take the role of the expert. All right, like in the legal definition, if someone is on a plane and they have a condition, they're having a heart attack, and a doctor doesn't assist, they can be sued for negligence on grounds of breach of duty. And much in this case, because they classify it as gender dysphoria, if they don't take the appropriate action and they know that something bad will come from the illness, then they very well could be held for negligence if that person kills themselves because they're put on notice. See the difference?
So first and foremost, doctors do not have any standard of duty to someone that is not their patient out in the wild. So if you do not help someone on a plane who's having a heart attack, and because they are not your patient, you will not be found liable for them dying. I don't know where you're getting this. That's not a thing that happens in the legal system.
Mm-hmm.
There's no legal obligation to help. Like it's quite literally a thing in our, like, I don't know where you're getting this information.
Yeah, but in this situation, they are their patient.
Yes, but what I'm telling you
and
is you cannot just unilaterally.
That's also not.
Yes, it is true. If you're going to say what I just said is untrue.
I know that you're saying that there's going to be no legal obligation for a doctor to provide assistance, but once a doctor renders assistance, the rescue doctrine comes into play. And you have to provide reasonable care under the rescue doctrine. So once you start the action, you have to do it right.
We also have Good Samaritan laws.
That's not what that is. Okay, we also have Good Samaritan laws. Now back to what we were talking about. I'm saying, I'm saying that the doctors can be held liable if they're put on notice on a mental illness from their patient and they don't take appropriate action. That would be considered a breach of duty. And that's the question at hand here that's going to be discussed with Chloe Cole, is whether or not that psychiatrist and that doctor broached their duty by allowing her to have this surgery.
I also just want to point out, you're totally, wait, real quick, I want to point out, you're totally wrong about what the rescue doctrine is. The rescue doctrine is a legal rule that holds that a person who is injured while trying to rescue someone else from a dangerous situation caused by another person's negligence, they're entitled to compensation. Not that if a doctor starts helping someone and they hurt the person, that person is now entitled to. Like, so you don't even know what the rescue doctrine is. Like, you use that wrong too.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. I just read it to you. I just read it to you. I just read it to you. The rescue doctrine is a legal rule that holds that a person who is injured. Nope. The rescue doctrine is a legal rule that holds that a person who is injured while trying to rescue someone from a dangerous situation caused by another person's negligence is entitled to compensation. The doctrine applies when a person is injured while attempting to rescue someone who is in danger due to another person's negligence, or the rescuer acted voluntarily and with a humane motive to prevent serious injury or loss of life. Like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay, I don't know what I'm talking about, eh?
You sure don't. You sure don't fucking know what you're talking about.
Or is it
you sure don't. You sure don't fucking know what you're talking about. Jesus Christ.
Is the rescue doctrine federal or is it local? What jurisdiction does rescue doctrine fall under? Is it something that's based upon federal jurisdiction, or is it circuit jurisdiction, or is it state jurisdiction?
That has nothing to do with what it does.
Ford Motor Co.
That has nothing to do with what it does.
Which speaks to the element, which speaks to one of the elements of the rescue doctrine.
Has nothing to do with what it does.
You don't know what I'm talking about?
No, it has nothing to do with what it does. You're just trying to fucking move the goalpost. I don't give a fuck if it's federal or local. I don't give a fuck if it's federal or local. I give a fuck about what it does, which you were wrong about.
You should, okay. The reason that I say that the rescue doctrine has prevalence is because on jurisdiction is because the rules change depending upon the jurisdiction, number one. And number two, the rescue doctrine absolutely can be used on doctors and medical professionals and experts. The rescue doctrine is used frequently on planes if there's negligence associated with the action that caused the client to fall ill.
Show me proof of that. Show me the proof.
You want
Give me a fucking court case.
The principle associated with it, I would do UNV Suzuki.
What am I looking up?
It
Can't
said
find this
you asked
anywhere.
for a court case. It said UNV Suzuki for rescue doctrine. There.
Suzuki versus Ewan. Let's take a look.
Or is it McCoy?
Well, this one has nothing to do with the rescue doctrine, so I'm assuming it's not
McCoy.
this one.
I'm sorry. It's McCoy. I've got a million of these things floating in my head. It's McCoy v. Suzuki. And it speaks to the fourth element, which is that the plaintiff acted with reasonable care. And if the doctor doesn't act,
this has nothing to do with what. No, this again proves my point. And when it comes to McCoy v. American Suzuki Motor Corp, the plaintiff was struck by a car while offering assistance. It has nothing to do with what you claimed, which is the rescue doctrine would fall into effect if a person was on a plane and didn't offer assistance. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. See ya, stupid. Everybody say who was that? Everybody say W. Yuzu. Embarrassing, bro.